joined by Seth Wilson, the other co-host on this podcast. And my understanding is we're going live via YouTube today.
We're giving it the old college try. How about that? So the back end software that we use to record this gives us a feature to stream over to YouTube. So we'll see how that goes. But just in case, we're going to record what we're doing so we can post that as we normally do, and make sure that the content that we are attempting to deliver is delivered.
Well, I'm excited about it. The Lifetime Legacy Lawyer podcast continues to grow and do new things. It's a new adventure every week. Keep on improving. We'll have a real solid podcast one of these days. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Repetition is what it takes, right? We're in the middle of the Olympic season, so you watch all these athletes that have prepared and gone through these processes over and over to become the best at what they do. We're trying just to do the same with all the clients that we serve. So, hey, I was reading on your, you got it. I was reading on your blog, and we were kind of talking before we got on the call about the Medicaid process. And I know one of the big questions that we face very frequently in our practice is protecting property with and qualifying for Medicaid and how that works. And I thought this would be a good process or a thing for us to go through today as we are just really, we face this question several times a week, probably from clients.
Yeah, protecting assets from Medicaid is one of the big topics in my practice as an elder law attorney, and as an estate planning attorney yourself, you get the same kind of conversations a lot of times also. So one of the biggest points is to put your money in an exempt resource, if at all possible. Exempt resources is kind of the starting point. Is there some person that can receive funds in a Medicaid exempt manner, or can you put funds into some kind of vehicle that is Medicaid exempt and not have a penalty period? That's one of the main things, is try not to invoke a penalty if you can help it. But then if you do have a penalty period, then you should find a way to pay for that penalty period. And by that, I mean a time during which Medicaid will not pay for your care and somebody else is going to have to find a way to pay for your care during a penalty period. So there are numerous examples of exempt resources. One example is 529 accounts. Another example is the principal residence, as long as there is a spouse or the Medicaid applicant or recipient living in the house. And some of the exempt transfers are pretty helpful as well. So if an adult child has lived in the principal residence of the Medicaid applicant for at least, I believe it's 2 years, the house can be transferred over to that adult child without penalty. So that can be really helpful to somebody that has moved in with mom or dad to take care of mom or dad. And sort of on the other side of things, if mom or dad moves in with you and lives there for at least 1 year, purchasing a life estate, so having a parent purchase a life estate in the home of an adult child, is also an exempt transfer. So, it may be the fair market value of a life estate could be, $75,000. And that $75,000 could be transferred over to the adult child that is selling the life estate interest. And that can be a great way of protecting assets in an exempt manner. So that's really my starting point, is if we're in a Medicaid planning situation right now, let's try to use exempt resources and exempt transfers to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah, and I think that is sort of the understanding a lot of clients will come to me with as well. I need to get the assets out of my name and move them to an appropriate person. And the question is how best to do that and the right way to do that to make sure that those are actually protected. Because we talk about the Medicaid 5-year look back period where Medicaid will be able to look at all those transfers and gifts or asset changes that may have made. And if appropriate, Medicaid may pull those back into the calculation to determine if you are eligible or not. And so as you're thinking about those things, and we talked about this, I think, on the last podcast, of when there are these large life events that occur where you're thinking about, boy, I might need to qualify for Medicaid or long-term care in the future. These are great times to have those discussions so that you don't end up with an unpleasant surprise when you've tried to take a course of action that actually didn't help you get past the 5-year look back period.
Yeah, and the 5-year look back period is a big consideration in a lot of the estate plans of people that I talk to. And one of the things that is advantageous about a Medicaid asset protection trust is that it starts the 5-year look back period, but it keeps assets under wraps for a period of time. A lot of people talk about, well, I'll just quit claim my deed, to a son or daughter, or they might say, I'll just, gift my, life insurance policy or add somebody to my bank account. And that really could possibly subject you to a penalizable interest. But along with that, you kind of don't have assets under wraps anymore. It's sort of like going for a walk with your dog without a leash on your dog, and the dog can get away from you. You don't know what's going to happen to that asset once it's in somebody else's legal ownership. That person has his or her own problems, his or her own spouses, and it may not get returned to you. And so you want to go into Medicaid planning, pre-planning really, ahead of time so that you can get the 5-year look back period running, but also keep some kind of control over the asset so that you can get it back if need be, and kind of have some kind of backup plan if Medicaid doesn't, if Medicaid needs to be received within the next 5 years. So having a Medicaid asset protection trust is great, but you want to do that kind of planning with an elder law or estate planning attorney that can assist you through that and talk to you about the pros and cons and the strategies involved in that.
Right. And that's such a important part of the toolkit that may be available to you as you're thinking about this long-term care planning, and really highlights the importance of reaching out to someone experienced in this area of law to ensure that the right steps are being taken and the right considerations are being made. Because I have had those situations where, unfortunately, the planning was done, but the individuals didn't quite potentially understand the full ramification of that planning. So they changed one characterization of an asset for eligibility here, but then needed the assets and they weren't available to them anymore, right? And so there are lots of considerations here that you really need to make sure that you have a good understanding, and an experienced attorney will help walk you through all of the puzzle pieces that you may need to consider before finishing that puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You want to talk to somebody about talk to an attorney about how best to protect assets in that sort of situation. So that's just kind of a snapshot. Certainly there could be a longer, more in-depth conversation about how to protect assets from Medicaid, but I think we both have busy schedules today, so I think that's all that we can handle for now. But this will be a good way of testing out the YouTube channel, and hopefully that will become a resource to a lot of people as they think about these issues regarding Medicaid and estate planning and estate tax and all kinds of situations like that estate planning attorneys come into.
Yeah, and one more point on that, Thomas, just given, that we are sort of live theoretically anyway. So there are situations that are very emergent, meaning they're right away needs that need to be addressed. And I know that we think about this 5-year period and is it too late to do this or that because we didn't do things ahead of time? Now what? And that's also a great time to reach out because there are some options for short term or short window types of things. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about some changes to some of that, but there are some available options. So even if you may not have had enough time in your plan to meet these look back periods, there are some additional options there. So make sure you reach out to an attorney in that situation.
Yeah, there certainly are a lot of options available for that immediate Medicaid crisis, where if you don't get on Medicaid right away, the checks are just going to start coming and you're going to have to keep paying until you don't have any more money in the bank account. The well's going to run dry. That doesn't have to be the case. Congress, state of Indiana, kind of with the program that they've put into place with Medicaid, they've given us opportunities to plan and to protect assets. So it's just a matter of knowing the rules, and that's what attorneys get paid for, right? Knowing the rules and how to protect assets. That's what I really enjoy doing in my practice. So definitely talk to somebody as soon as possible when that kind of long-term care event is happening.
Yeah. Well, Thomas, if people need to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
Best way to reach me is by going to my website, vicklaw.org, and book a call, vicklaw.org, and book a call. How about you, Seth?
We are located up here in the heart of Hamilton County on the north side of Indianapolis, and our web address is simply noblesvilleattorney.com. Well, Thomas, it's great to see you today. Thanks so much for the time.
All right. We'll see you later. Thanks, everybody.